I'm trying to see if this is before or after you sucked in your cheeks.
Well, you said I want 20 seconds of silence, and I gave you.
Right, but you did.
Yes.
I guess it. I guess it did. It clipped it out. You're a lucky man.
I remember there was a show called My Living Doll with Julie Newmar playing the role as a robot.
Catwoman.
She was Catwoman, but she was also a robot named Rhoda, and she co-starred with Robert Cummings. Remember Bob Cummings?
Yes, of course.
Never seemed to age. He was like Dick Clark. But there was
he was the Dorian Gray of that era. Yeah.
And there was one episode. She was a robot, so she had to follow to the letter any instruction that was given to her.
Right. I seem to recall this show.
And
yes.
Robert Cummings said to her in one of the episodes, "Rhoda, don't move a muscle." And all of a sudden, she was just like, and he looked at her and he said, "What are you doing?" And mentally or whatever like that, she said, "You said not to move a muscle."
Exactly. All right.
So I sucked it in for you.
Thank you. Oh, that was really attractive.
Yeah.
All right, Joe Chaffee, FiOS 1 News, Long Island in New Jersey.
And FiOS 1 News, Lower Hudson Valley. Joe Rayo here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And Joe, we got through another, what would you call this morning? Was it?
Well, you talking about overnight?
Yeah,
I mean, that thing just completely fell apart. You know,
yeah.
I was live streamed. I late live streamed last night. It was Sunday night. And, I tried to give myself a little downtime on the weekend, so I didn't do a live stream on Saturday. So last night I jumped on it at about 10, I think it was at 10 o'clock, right after Victoria was done on PBS. I'm a classy individual. I watch highbrow television.
Okay.
So anyway, I did this doing the live stream. We're pulling up the radar, and you could see so clearly how the snow that was breaking out across New England and upstate New York and into northeastern Pennsylvania, what little there was there, was very blotchy. Then you had this southern area. They stayed basically separate. And this was something that the models had, even the short-range models inside 12 hours blew it.
Right.
And I was telling you, because we're going to look at the NAM tonight with this next thing, which I don't really think is done particularly well. I think it's actually overdone a lot of these systems we've had, and the forecast winners have been the ones that have recognized the fact that everything's underperforming. But the NAM late yesterday afternoon all of a sudden showed all this sinking dry air overhead for last night, and I didn't look at it until late in the evening, and then it caught my eye, and I even did a double take, because why is it not showing vertical motions and some instability? Instead, it's showing a very a sinking air and a stable atmosphere while all of this is supposed to be going on. No good.
Well, the mid and long range models a week ago were suggesting that the snow would be arriving here sometime in the morning on Wednesday. Then, as time went on, it was more like late morning to midday, and as time continued as we got a little bit closer to the event, it pushed it to just after 1 o'clock.
Right.
And now it's looking more and more like we may get through much of the afternoon now without any significant snowfall. It may not be until sometime late Wednesday afternoon or evening. And the longer it takes to get here, the less likely we're going to have any long-term snowfall, because coming close on its heels now is that change over to sleet, freezing rain, and ice.
It's basically a foot race. Now, for places to the south of us, down from southern New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, down to Washington, D.C., Baltimore, the precip's going to develop while the cold high is in place. But if it takes longer to get here, this high is different. We can illustrate all this, Joe. So let's roll right through it. First off, just to set it straight with respect to who's got what and where. Winter storm watches from western New Jersey, much of eastern and southern Pennsylvania, but not the northeastern corner. Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, draw a line from just south of Washington, D.C., Baltimore, north and west, all under a winter storm watch warnings. Southwest Virginia, western North Carolina. A lot of this is for not a whole lot of snow, because I looked at the forecast. Some of these areas are only going for several inches, but it's a changeover to sleet and freezing rain. And then you got a ton of flood watches up back to the Ohio and Tennessee Valley. They're going to get, over the next week, some of these areas are going to see half a foot or more of rain. So this is a powerhouse system, and it's already doing its thing out in, it's coming out of the southwest. We've got a lot of winter storm warnings up in northern Arizona. Snowed in Vegas today.
Wow, it's snowing everywhere. I read somewhere there on the island of Maui in Hawaii.
Yes, 6,200 feet, I believe it was. Lowest ever observed.
It's incredible. Everybody seems to be getting hit by some sort of snow this particular winter season.
Well, it's all in the West.
Yeah.
And we all, you and I both know from experience that when it's like this in the West, it's usually not that promising in the East.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it's been. And that's where, I know I've seen people grasping at straws, and as far as the short and long range are concerned, and I think that's all it is, but no matter.
It has to change radically from what we've seen. It's been all of the snows that we've had, save for that one storm in the middle of November, all the storms that we've had have been more or less just, a start of snow, a quickie inch or two or three, and done.
And this snow map, as Joe, is a little unusual because of the fact that usually when we see big snow amounts to the south and lower amounts to the north, it's because we have a storm that's passing by to our south.
Right.
In this instance, we don't see this too often, where the snow is timing out in Virginia and Maryland when the coldest air is going to be there.
Right.
And the amounts tail off as you go north because as that snow advances, it's going to be going into progressively warmer air because of the deteriorating cold air mass that's moving off the east coast.
Everything is turned upside down in this particular case. Yeah.
Okay, so this was my idea. I'm curious as to what you think of it.
I think, actually, believe it or not, I think I said this to you a little while ago.
I know, but say it again.
What? I'm beginning to think that 1 to 3 inches might be, dare I say, excessive in this particular scenario.
Well, after what happened yesterday, you can't rule out the possibility that all of this snow, as it moves northward, basically starts to fall apart. Right. And that you wind up maybe on a low end here, or closer to the 1 than the 3. That area, anyway.
I think I'm going to. I didn't post a snow map on my Facebook page until just before yesterday or last night's event began. And a few people were questioning the fact, don't you think there's going to be anything south of 287? Guess what? There wasn't anything south of 287.
I had a coating of sleet.
And so I think I'm going to wait until maybe Wednesday morning before I finally put a snow map up on my site. But of course, we here at FiOS 1, as a team, we put out a preliminary map tonight.
And then I approve it.
And you
Addison works so hard on those snow maps.
Right.
He really does. Brian did ours today. Yeah, I'm teasing.
I think it was just a little. I'm not. My confidence level is like.
Well, so why wouldn't it be?
And tomorrow night, obviously, I will go with the whatever we come together with as a group or a consensus, because that's what's expected. We're television or whatever. But on my own site, I'm going to wait until Wednesday morning before I put it.
I like to do the early call, and one of the things I noticed, and I should have done it with this last system. Had I stuck with my original early call, I would have been fine. Mm-hmm. I got a little too cute with it yesterday. We haven't had many challenges this year, so trying to micromanage everything down to a half an inch. But the bottom line is, I've been pretty good with my early calls, and where I don't really have to change very much. Everybody forecasts shops. I get that. I get that everybody goes out searching for the most apocalyptic conclusion they could find, and then claim that I said it. So
does it really matter though if we get 1 to 3 or 2 to 4?
Well, that's exactly correct. I mean, if you're
50 degrees on Thursday,
if you're going to sit here, if someone is going to make an issue out of the fact that you said 1 to 3 and we wound up with 2 to 4. I think that person has bigger issues than he or she realizes.
Right.
But the areas to the south, these are areas where their weather services are going for 4, 5, 6 inches. I'm just not that bullish. I really think you have to prove it to me in order to get me to go higher. So I kept things pretty tepid in the areas that are perhaps a bit more favorable to get some snow. So we probably have enough of the new NAM. So I have it here. This is now, let me just make sure everybody is seeing this. because only on this channel, by the way, do no one else live streams the NAM. All right, you know where I'm going with this.
Yes, I know.
Okay, so just okay. No one else live streams the NAM but us. All right. So here we go. Here what we're watching. This is we are now at 4 a.m. Wednesday. So you snow lovers, you want to see this snow rush up to the northeast as quickly as possible. Joe, big difference in the prior this event versus the prior event. You know what? If I can, give me a second. I drew these up today. I should have pulled them up before, but I think this will explain to everybody at home what this system versus the one from last Tuesday.
Well, last Tuesday we had snow beginning, at least at my house, before 9 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
That's not going to happen this time.
No, and there's a certain, we always say how there's a certain rhyming nature to weather events. Come on, open up. It's being very difficult.
Technology, Joe, technology.
I know, I'm trying to get to that second shot here. All right, good. Open. No.
Open sarsaparilla.
Oh God. Seriously. I want to get. Okay, so I got that. All right, I got that one.
Okay.
And I want to get this one. And now I can close this, and I'll close this. All right, great. I made the mistake again. All right, so this kind of illustrates what the issue is with regards to last Tuesday versus this time around.
Okay.
The last Tuesday, the high was sitting up in southern Quebec. This time around, look where the high is, Joe, at least on this plot from the NAM from earlier today. It's in southern Connecticut. That's a big deal.
Right.
Because it's wedging that cold air southward, which is all fine and dandy for everybody down in northern Virginia, for the snow lovers anyway, into Maryland, southern Pennsylvania, and going back through Ohio. All right. But it's already pretty far south. And what does it do? It winds up, if it loads, and there it is. So that high, for the one from last week, moved into basically western Maine and New Brunswick. So that kept that northeast flow in here and kept things cold.
Right.
Our high this time around is going well to the southeast of Cape Cod, to the east of us, which is going to set up a warmer southeast flow that's going to erode the cold air relatively quickly, and you just cut that snow shield down and it starts to shrink. And that's the big problem. If this were to come in, if this came in here, if this precip were to arrive at 7 o'clock in the morning, you'd snow all day before you'd lose it.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
It's not. It's going to take. It's going to take its time. So we're going to watch how the NAM handles this. So here we are at 10 a.m. All right, and you got this. The snow in southern Pennsylvania. There's your high sitting over Rhode Island. And by 1 o'clock now, the new NAM has snow to New York City. So it brings it in faster, which in theory would suggest that it should last longer. But I bet you when we pull up the foose with that high sitting in northern New Jersey that we're going to find negative vertical motions and that the air is sinking.
Right.
And you wonder if this whole lead area is just aloft and doesn't reach the ground.
That's be also interesting on the foose to see what the R1 is. If it's below 80%, that means it's too dry to support anything that comes down.
All right.
This will be Virga.
Correct. Okay, so we can keep going. So we're at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, and then 7 o'clock it changes over. So it looks like the NAM gives about a solid 5 hours of precip, but let's figure out, let's see what it gives us.
And what's the intensity?
Well, that's the other question. Okay, so, and of course we change over to sleet and then over to rain and then it's over with.
Right.
Looks like by 1 a.m., between 1 and 4 a.m. it's almost all, it's done. So, all right, so let's see if the foose is in, shall we? I already preloaded the foose.
Okay, it's 9:35, so.
All right, so we'll bring this up, and I'm gonna. Oh, good, it's in. All right, so let me highlight LaGuardia. Let's take a look. All right. Well, there's that negative vertical motion at 30 hours, and I'm sorry, and it goes positive. Okay, that's overnight.
I keep getting confused here. So 24
That's tomorrow night at
Right,
0Z.
Right.
So 48.
At 7 a.m. we have a 64 on the R1, which is still very dry.
Right.
85, so it jumps above 80% by 1 o'clock. And plus 3.9 vertical motion and plus 7.5 there.
Okay. So here we get 43 hundredths plus 7.5. The boundary wind is almost due east at 13 knots, which is not screaming. Your thickness is up to 45, -1, -3, -4.
Okay. So
that probably should be cold enough for snow. So that would say that 43 hundredths falls as snow. That's 4 inches. If that were literally every drop.
I don't know. 545 thickness though. That seems to lean more. So like sleet mixed with snow or whatever.
So take 43 hundredths, cut it in half. It tells you maybe 2.5 inches of snow, and then it changes over to sleet. You're good with that?
Yeah.
And then after that, at 54 hours, the that's all the way up to 53 now. It's +1, +1, +5. So that's rain.
Right.
So you get a fairly quick transition at LaGuardia. Now I want to take a look at Philadelphia because they're going to be in the cold air longer. So. And by the way, we've been down the road. I noticed with this past event that some of the regular runs produced a lot of precip, and the off-hour runs produced half of what the regular runs did. So I'm not convinced that.
Well, look at the vertical motion in Philadelphia. 2 consecutive hours of +10 vertical motion. That's pretty good. 0.24 and 0.61.
So and then this is probably rain by that time, or at least just by getting ready to change to rain. That's by evening, so it gives 85 hundredths before it changes. Cut it in half, so that says about 4 inches in Philly before it changes over. So that works. Let's look at Washington D.C. because they're in the thick of it while the cold air is still pretty active. And this is the old one. I got to refresh. I'm sorry. The old one gave them 44 hundredths, but it wasn't completely through. So let's highlight that. So Washington gets.
And Washington too has a lot of vertical motion. Plus 9.5, followed by plus 13.9.
1232.44, but look at this. They're almost 549 thickness, -1, -1, -1. That's sleet. That's got to be sleet. So 32.44. This would say Washington gets like a quick shot of 2 or 3 inches, and then it goes over to sleet. And then of course after that it's gone. I mean, then that's rain 44 hundredths, and then another 68 hundredths after that. So they really get a soaking rain 560. Boy, it gets pretty warm there at aloft at least.
Yeah, that's interesting. Look at that. I don't remember, Joe. That's a first for me. I don't remember ever seeing a 560 thickness with a T1 of 0.
Yeah, and folks, what's that saying is it's very, very warm aloft. I mean, really super warm aloft. If that were to translate down into the surface, you'd probably be talking about temperatures at least in the 50s and maybe even in the 60s. But instead, the model is saying that the very bottom of the atmosphere, the bottom 1,000 feet or so, is really cold because it's showing a temperature of at the freezing mark at 54 hours. You don't see that.
T10, T2 plus 12.
Yeah, I mean that's insane. It's mid-50s. What is that level? What would we say?
Well, I think it's the T1 level. I think is the last 35. Millibars.
What was the T? And you told me last week. I forgot.
The T2 is 800.
Okay, so that's about 5,000 feet or a little higher.
And the T3 is like 700 millibars.
Okay, so you're talking about temperatures in the 50s.
So very warm, and then literally a shallow layer of very, very cold air. It's incredible.
For laughs, because I've been making this point about because people are seeing some of these ridiculous snow map numbers. I mean, come on. There's not going to be a foot. There's not going to be 20 inches of snow in southwestern Pennsylvania.
Now, what is that? A straight 10 to 1?
This is a straight 10 to 1, and this is the problem. These maps don't. This does not. You have to subtract out sleet. You have to subtract out freezing rain. It all counts in here, and it doesn't. It's not a good forecasting tool to use.
What is the total positive snow depth?
Now, this is supposed to exit out. And I mean, it's still showing some pretty ridiculous numbers in Central PA. I can't expect them to get how much of that is sleet.
You have to take into account, though. I mean, the Central PA. Where's that? The Appalachians, the elevation, maybe that.
Maybe I don't know, but you know, noticed by the the city in Long Island, it's much less. There's like a bulge there. You might say that the way it outlines the area of snow is not that bad, but in terms of the specific numbers, you can't use these snow maps as tools. So I caution everybody when you're out there. You're seeing a lot of this stuff being bandied around. And again, I know you forecast shop. It's no secret. Everybody does it, and then you come back and you say, well, Joe, how come you're saying this and so is saying that?
And the GFS, which we know is notoriously warmer than the NAM,
but it shows the possibility that it comes in and gets completely eroded.
Right.
And you can't discount it. I'm suspicious of the overdeveloped NAM only because of the fact that it's been doing that a lot lately, and it hasn't come to pass. We saw that I forgot the two prior events, but one in January and the one in February, where it was cold. It showed a cold solution over the coast, and then at the last minute it said no.
Right.
So you got to pay attention to the fact that the NAM might not be having a good. It's not the infallible model that everybody seems to think it is.
None of the models have had a very good winter overall, and even the thought now that we're going to get rid of the old GFS and replace it with the new parallel GFS on March 20th.
That model's just garbage. I mean, from what I've looked at and what I've seen it do over the last couple of months, particularly in these last couple of events, and no, this is going to be a problem. It really is going to be a problem.
It really will be.
Thank you, Lori Kraft. We appreciate that you trust us both. Thank you so much. So, we're thinking 3 to 4 down for you before you change over to sleet and then to rain. And, one of the things I would just emphasize, too, is the fact that when it comes to, my snow forecast outside of my general area, I'm somewhat familiar with the topography, but I don't live there. So there are going to be places where I'm not going to get the duration of sleet, the duration of freezing rain, trapped valleys, elevation, and all the rest of it. We try to compensate for that, but we can't. We can't nail every single spot, but we can kind of give you the general broad brush view.
The one place that I would be very confident that would get, let's say, in excess of 6 inches out of this might be in Garrett County in western Maryland. That's not too far away from Hagerstown. But I used to do the weather for the municipality down there. They are elevated, and they seem to get a lot of snow for whatever reason as compared to places that are not so elevated. So Garrett County might be in line for, or maybe some ice. Let's also talk about the possibility down there of a protracted or prolonged spell of ice in places in Maryland and Virginia and whatnot. So
Jason said, would the model's accumulation map take Virga into account in any way? Jason, one of the things I've noticed is sometimes the snow maps will show accumulating snow, and then if you pull up the melted liquid precipitation map for the same time frame, it'll show nothing. Okay, so that could be an issue there with regards to seeing some exaggerated numbers sometimes, and I've seen it happen a lot. So it's a good thing to do is if you see the snow map produce something up to a certain time, check the liquid precip, the melted precipitation, and see if it matches, because a lot of times it doesn't, and I wonder if that's the case, that it shows this Virga and it picks it up as snow actually reaching the ground. In fact, I can do that. I'll do that off camera. I just want to, just out of curiosity. So let's back it up through. So this is as of 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It has snowed in New York City. In this instance, it's probably going to match up. So let's look at the accumulated precip. Yeah, I mean, it's just bringing in the first couple of hundredths there to New York. So at least in this case, it seems to match up. But I've seen it where it doesn't, where it'll produce snow, and then you go look at the map,
and it's further back,
and there's no measurable there.
Right.
So, but that's a good point and a good thing to pay attention to. Just trying to see if there's any other question. Paul Gaduzzi, you're still waiting for an all-pure snow event all season. I guess you mean from start to finish. Doesn't look like we're going to get that this year. Not the way things are going. I wonder, Joe, this might, after this is done, the next system for next weekend, that's all rain. I think, we get into a brief window at the beginning of March where the pattern looks like it might get colder, but in terms of being seasonal. But I don't know if anything's going to happen. And then after that, you're almost to March 10th or 11th.
Maybe this will be the bookend winter. In other words, we got our big snow in mid-November, and we'll get our final in late March or early April. Right?
It could be. It could be. You can always have. You could have that. The overall primary pattern is not favorable, and then you get a window for about 3 or 4 days where the pattern relaxes enough to allow for something to happen. I think that's the only way. As far as some sort of wholesale pattern change like last year that took us through the whole month of March, that's not happening. I really, really think that is not happening from what I'm seeing.
There was a psychic, I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago or whatever, in the New York Post, who said New York City would get a big snowstorm on Easter Sunday, except that this year is one of the late Easters. It's going to happen like on April 21st. So I don't know if that's going to be the case.
Art Mochi, our good buddy Art Mochi. How about northern and western Jersey driving home from the Poconos to Long Island on Wednesday? If you leave early enough, you shouldn't have a problem. If you drive back in the morning, you should be okay, because it probably won't. I don't know. I'm still not sure if it's going to get to New York City by 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
So
it might still
wind up being delayed or eaten up. And I think that's where the risk is, Joe, that you're going to have some of that front end snow eaten up by the dry air.
Right.
And then the warm air comes up faster, and the snow just erodes and then changes over to sleet and then over to rain.
Do you think there might be, in this case, if it comes in with reasonable speed, that we might have I'm just doing this for all the snow lovers
like
out there.
A quick thump.
A thump,
It's got to come in. If we get it to where it comes in faster, and say if it were to get to New York City by say mid morning, then you probably have a fair chance for a thumping of snow for about 3 or 4 hours.
Right.
And you pick up a quick 3 or 4 inches.
That's going to be basically the story. Is that the longer it holds off, the worse it's going to be for all of you who want to see a significant snowfall. Because as we get into the evening hours and that southeast wind starts doing its thing, that's going to be it. That's all she's going to write.
All right. Speaking of which, we got to go. Top of the hour for me, FiOS 1 News Long Island and FiOS 1 News New Jersey.
And FiOS 1 News Lower Hudson Valley for me. And hopefully everything will come into better focus tomorrow night, Joe.
All right. We'll be here.
Yep.
And I'll have my YouTube live stream tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. My Patreon members probably will get a live stream tomorrow morning after the NAM comes out. And don't forget, if you miss a live stream on YouTube, or if you miss the Joe and Joe show, if you're on my weather app, you can watch it there. So if you haven't downloaded that yet, please do. It's absolutely free. It's on Google Play for Androids. It's on the App Store. Did you download it yet?
Say goodnight.
All right.
Say goodnight.
Anyway, just it says right there. Just search meteorologist Joe Chaffee and the app will come up either on the App Store or Google Play. Have a good night. I'll work on him to get it on his darn iPhone. Bye.